Low intensity CBT is a worldwide movement in which laypeople are trained to provide their communities mental health services. I recently had the pleasure of speaking with Christabel Akowuah, founder of Hycares, a low intensity CBT program in Ghana. Currently based in Boston, Christabel spoke about the origins of the program in her own childhood in that country. She believes programs like Hycares play an essential role in poor countries with little infrastructure in place to respond to significant healthcare needs. Please join us. Welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Daniel, and it's great to be here too.
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up?
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, I grew up in Ghana. So I grew up in Ghana, specifically in the Ashanti region, which is more like inner, like not along the coast, but inland. And I grew up in the town, the city of Kumasi, but in a smaller town within that city. And in smaller towns, the culture is such that it's very communal. Everybody's business is your business. You lend a helping hand when you can, and so that is something that has really been a part of me as I grew up and has really shaped who I have become.
Early experiences growing up there shape the way that you think today about community mental health?
I think it really started with my mom. My mom was just that kind of like community mom who, everybody would come with their problems. The especially the youth. She would sit outside the house and talk with them about, their drinking problems or like the truancy or something like that. And I remember I noticed that whenever, they were like sober for a week or something, they would come tell her and she would celebrate with them or she would give them something like a token. And then I noticed that even when they relapsed or something like that, they would still come tell her and continue to like want to continue to talk to her and for her to talk them through, whatever was triggering them and causing them to relapse. And so that really was where I started to think a lot about the ways in which the community really influences even health outcomes in general. And so I thought a lot about that. And then I used to also babysit a lot for neighbors. And so during that time, I got really exposed to like neurodivergence and, how sometimes the community itself, which had the power, basically to heal, also when there was lack of education, the way the community would deal with some of these conditions, the stigma. So that was when I really got into the idea of community education and how that is very important if you are able to support people, whether it's mental health issues or neurological disorders. So that's where I started from.
Graduated this year from Pomona College,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering how your time there shaped your views of psychology and neuroscience and community mental health.
Yes, so when I went to Pomona, I was very like straight on that I wanted to read neuroscience. I wanted to understand the brain and behavior and the interactions and all that. And so it was during that time while I was in Pomona that I took a couple of classes. I took some psychology classes and I took a class on the biopsychosocial model. And that was where, I got to understand how not just like your genetics or what you were born with, but how the environment influences how, your genes are expressed or, nature versus nurture. And during that time, I already had my own observations from what I had learned. Oh, I had observed growing up. And so a lot of things, I started to get the language for things that I had observed, and I wanted to get deeper into understanding them. And so it was during Pomona that I was able to first write a proposal for the mental health project that I started in Ghana. And then we got the grant to go and pilot it in 2024. And then after that, for my thesis, I wanted to go on and look at that intersection between psychology, what we think, stress, and how it manifests in the biology. So I did some work on stress hormones like cortisol in minoritized youth. And so during my time there, I did have the chance to explore different interests, and I had great professors who mentored me throughout these projects and through developing my own understanding of what I wanted to do.
When did you first hear about low intensity CBT?
So I started to read a lot. When I finished the first part of the project, there was still a lot of questions that were unanswered, and how we're going to proceed with the project. And so I started to read around it. I started to look at what kinds of interventions had been done in other countries. And so that was where I came across low intensity CBT and how it had been adapted in countries like, say, Zimbabwe, where they used a friendship bench. And so that was when, yes, I started to read about it. And then I reached out to some of the mental health professionals that I had worked with before in Ghana. To talk to them about how we could implement that to extend the program that we had started. So that was it was through my readings that I got introduced to it at first.
Is Hycares?
So Hycares is basically what I started or what we started. So in the summer of 2024, we piloted an intervention where we gave students at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, we developed an application, a mobile application that would help students to reach out to mental health professionals when they were in a crisis. And one of the questions we asked was that if we just give these students the platform without telling them anything or without teaching them, because again, mental health in a lot of lower income middle countries and even here in the US is still stigmatized. And so if you just present the platform to them, it's very unlikely that they are going to use it. And so we combined that with activities, mentors who came in to teach the students the importance of taking care of yourself and the steps to take, what to look out for in your friends when they seem to be in any crisis. And so we had a platform for them, and then we did pre-post intervention surveys looking at changes in the PSS stress scores. And we found that indeed, when they continue to engage in, the program and they engaged on the application, we saw that their stress scores really did go down. And one of the things that we found was that when we gave students that kind of agency, when we taught them so that they also taught their peers, it also increased their engagement in the application and they wanted to know more. So that was really one thing that we wanted to continue with. We wanted to extend that to more rural communities because one of the things about health equity is that not everybody that needs mental health support is going to be in the university. A lot of people are poor, they're not in school. So how do we reach young people like that? And so that is how the Sambra arm came into Hycares. So Hycares is basically the overall program that empowers young people, teaches them about mental health disorders and how to support others. So that is what Hycares is, and the Sambra program is an arm to that.
And how is it that Sambra addresses substance recovery in young people?
So yes, so one of the for about 2 years now, there has been, a lot of talk on almost like an opioid crisis in Ghana, especially a lot of youth. In a recent study that I read, I think a 2022 paper, that they found that about 22% to 78% of Ghanaian youth are using some kind of opioid non-medically, which means it hasn't been prescribed for them. And so it was because of that, and also because of some other people that we knew the youth in the schools had talked about that they knew who were, abusing these drugs. And when you read about it, you realize a lot of it is, coping from some trauma that has not been healed, not having the spaces for youth to process whatever they're going through, especially when it comes to do with poverty and the frustrations of not getting a job. And again, for young guys who are mostly expected to be the ones to take care of the family. The data shows that it's mostly the young guys that are, highly abusing these drugs. And so what we wanted to do with Sambra was to create community spaces, create spaces within the community where the community itself has the agency. They are taught, they work with the mental health professionals, and they deliver these services, kind of like a tax shifting model, so that they deliver these services to the youth. And once it's ingrained within the community, we thought that this is one of the best ways to ensure the sustainability of the program. And so we worked with the mental health professionals to design the program, to design the sessions. And so the youth come in, the youth were screened through the help of the mental health professionals. They had to be within a certain range. They could not be like in the extremes, because this is not really like a rehab center. And so they had to be people that are, taking the drugs, but also are kind of sane enough and, with the right support can be helped to get out of that situation. And so, yes, that is how Sambra came about, with the rising issues of the opioid crisis and some of the things that we read about. That's why we started Sambra.
Tell us about the low intensity CBT component of Sambra.
Okay. So when the youth come to the center, they come to the center about 3 times a week. And whenever they come, they go through a lot of structured activities, because one of the main aims of low intensity CBT is to bring back that structure and help the youth get back into activities that they used to enjoy. And so when they come in, one of the first things that we do is some kind of communal activity. So it could be singing, it could be just talking about a proverb and just discussing that. And then after that, they do a pair sharing activity where they talk about it, the prompt of the day. So sometimes it can be what has been working for you throughout the process, or what has been your greatest challenge so far. And so they do that with their peers. And as they do that, there are university volunteers, some of our trained volunteers who are around helping on the sessions, and also gathering data for us to know how best to support them. And concurrently, the community leaders will be meeting with the mental health professionals. And so the mental health professionals are the ones that help them to design the day's CBT plan. So mostly we do things like behavior activation, and then problem solving. So they ask them questions that nudge them into opening up about whatever problems they may be experiencing. And then the community leaders help them going through the problems and prioritizing, what they should do at this point and what they should not do at this point. And another thing that we try to do is to get them involved again in activities that they may enjoy. And so far we have been working on them with things like bead making. We have some of the university students that come in and teach them things like computer literacy, resume building, and sometimes some outdoor activities as well. And so it's really that structure and the behavior activity activation, and also relapse prevention. We know that relapse is a part of the process, but the thing with Sambra is that Sambra translates directly to comeback. And so the whole idea is that the youth know that they can always come back, irrespective of whether they relapse or whatever happens. We know it's not a linear process. They're going to fall sometimes, but we're teaching them that they can always return. So, yeah.
I think you've already shared with us the roots of that dimension of the program, that when folks your mom was talking to would relapse, they'd come back and talk to her about that. And I think that's such an important component of any system, because many, many people do experience relapse.
Mhm.
So to accommodate that, and I tell my patients that I'm working with who are recovering from chemical dependency or anxiety or depression, there's a very high probability that though you're feeling much better right now, you will relapse and
Mhm.
you will start using again, or you'll start feeling depressed or anxious.
Mhm.
And I explained to them that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing
Yeah.
because that will be your next opportunity to use the cognitive and behavioral tools that you've learned to
Mhm.
pull yourself back out of the relapse and prove to yourself that you have
Mhm.
what you need to continue to live clean and sober or to
Mhm.
live without having panic attacks or a
Mhm.
lot of suicidal thinking or something.
Mhm.
So, thank you, Mother, for setting the groundwork for this. And I think it's wonderful that people will come back
Mhm.
when they fall back.
Yes.
Would love to hear a story about an individual that you've worked with or the team has worked with and the kind of impact that Sunbra has had for them.
Mhm. Yes. So yeah, there is one guy so he lived in the city in Kumasi for a while. He was working there, life was going okay. All his family were back in the village where the program is happening. And something happened and he got framed for a theft and he got fired from the job just like that. And these are some of the things that happen to people, and then you have never really had any coping mechanisms. You've never really been in a situation like that, so you have absolutely no idea what to do, or you have no support system who really understands what is going on to help you. And so he had to come back to the village, and coming to face the shame, having to explain to the family what happened, and all that took a toll on him. And so that was when he started to join bad company, started to take the drugs, started to use tramadol. And so when we started the program, he was very, because he kind of knew where he had been before, and he had been like this for a long time, hadn't had anybody supporting him and all that. He seemed to be very serious with the program, would come consistently, whenever we met, would engage himself in everything that we did. And so over time we could see changes in his moods. We could see that he was very interested in certain activities. He loved to paint, he loved to draw, he was very interested in the bead making activities. And over time, so right now what he's doing is that he's actively interviewing for a new job. And what we are doing is that we have some of our student volunteers who reach out to the youth through phones. So because some of them have to move away, like this guy, for example, he has to leave the village to sometimes go to his interviews or try to get a job. And so we want that wherever you are, you can still access Sambra, even if you're not physically in the town. And so the volunteers are able to call him to check up on him and to find out, has there been anything that triggered you recently? What is going on with you? And so we're seeing a lot of improvements. We're seeing that, he opens up, he's taking everything seriously. He's taking the work that he's doing seriously, and he seems to be on a great path. And again, if, it doesn't work and anything happens, then, he has to come back. We're always available. So for now, he seems to be doing pretty good. Yeah.
What role should young people themselves play in designing solutions for substance abuse recovery and reintegration into their communities?
So, yes, so one of the things that, we learned was that, agency is a very important thing in this whole process. And to have that agency means to educate yourself, right? To try to find out more about if you're, depressed or whatever it is that you're going through, really trying to learn more about the condition and understanding that it is a condition and not a state. It is not who you are, right? There are a lot of factors that came together to cause you to be in this state. And so it's necessary for them to understand that that is just what it is. It's a period of time and it's able to pass. And so I think that education is very important. And once they get empowered in that sense, being able to dissipate that education to their other peers and other people is also very important. So I think that really staying educated and immersing themselves in whatever resources are available for them, whatever programs that are designed for them is one of the most important things that they have to do.
What personally for you has been the most rewarding part of the work that you're doing in Ghana?
Um, I think it's just seeing like the small wins. Because sometimes, we collect the data, we collect feedback, we run surveys, and sometimes when I sit back and I analyze it and I see how people are progressing, that is like a very rewarding thing for me. And there was one time when I felt very happy was we were unable to actually formally hold a session because there was an issue and we had to deal with it. And we learned that in our absence, the youth actually mobilized themselves, went to the center, and met. And that was when I realized that we had actually made a lot of impact because for them to actually take that initiative that even though they haven't called us that we are coming or they've called us that the session is not happening today, we're going to take that move and go and talk amongst ourselves and support each other. That was like a very humbling period for me. And that was when I really realized truly how much we are making an impact in the lives of these people.
Wonderful. What's been the hardest part about your journey so far?
I think not being in Ghana, I mean, I was able to go last summer, but a lot of what we have done this year has been coordinating from here, meeting up with the different teams and making sure that, everything is there for people to work. But I feel like the most rewarding part is actually being there and engaging with them, listening to their stories, seeing them more, seeing them come in, you know, not really having anything going on for themselves in a couple of weeks, seeing this person, making beads or doing this artwork or, telling you that, oh my God, this offers somewhere. I feel like the real magic is the work that they're doing on the grounds. And so I'm very grateful for the people that I have on grounds, from the mental health professionals to the student volunteers who make it a point to go there every single time and engage with them because I think that is that is the real work and that's what I'm missing out on. So that has been really hard for me. And again, because I'm an international student, there's also like visa issues that I have to take care of here. So sometimes that also takes my attention a little bit. So it's been a little hard to navigate that. But I do trust the team that I'm working with and I know that they're doing great on there.
If you think ahead 5 or 10 years from today, what would you like to see in terms of Hycares or Sanbra's growth and development?
So when we were starting the program, one of the things that we said was every community should have a Sambra center. And so we are hoping that we are able to slowly build a model that can be replicated in other communities. That is the whole point of doing this. And we hope that we also are able to have a team of young people that have the lived experience, that have gone through the program, have been able to learn positive ways of coping and can also become ambassadors or volunteers for the program and help other people also navigate these challenges. And so one of the things that I'm very interested in is public health and learning how to use tools like GIS mapping to look at what factors, predict what communities are more vulnerable to these conditions and what is it about the environment that causes youth to be in a situation like this. So that is something that my team and I are thinking a lot about. How are we able to use our data to understand, the environmental factors predicting a lot of these youth coping with these opioids, and how can we use that information to reach out to other communities that, may be vulnerable to that or may have already have a lot of their youth in that same situation. So that's what we are thinking about. And for Hycares, we hope to expand to more universities, train more young people, train more students to identify and support their peers through their mental health journey.
Well, I certainly share that hope for the future of these programs with you.
Mm-hmm.
As you
Thank
know, community mental health and low intensity CBT are near and dear my heart.
you. Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I'm grateful to you for extending the reach of this wonderful way of supporting community wellness to communities there in Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to learn more about what you're doing or wants to support your work, how could they best do that?
Okay, so they can go to our website. So we have a website, highcares.org, where you get to know all about the summer program, what Hycares is doing, and you can fill out the form there and let us know about your interest in any way. We are looking for, partners, organizations to work with for the youth. And if it's about a donation, again, you can let us know through our website or just email me directly through my email, caaa2021@mymail.pomona.edu, and I will we can take it from there. But yes, any kind of support is very welcome.
Well, Christabel, thanks so much for the work that you're doing and for your sharing it with us here this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put a couple of links to the programs at the end of the video for folks who would like to
Mm-hmm.
follow them and learn more and support the work that's happening there in Ghana. And
Mm-hmm.
just want to appreciate you for our time together here this afternoon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me as well. It's been great talking to you and sharing what Sambra and Hycares has been up to. Thank you very much.